Random House Audiobooks presents The Last River by Todd Balf. The Last River. Great Falls of the Potomac, August 1975. Pre-dawn, the Potomac River. Boyhood friends Wick Walker and Tom McEwan, now in their late 20s, and a young tag-along, Dan Schnurrenberger, stumble around their island campsite gathering up gear. They don helmets and spray skirts, grab paddles, and furtively slip into the swift but familiar current. The plan is simple. Before the Park Service is up and about, they will paddle upstream 1.5 miles to the base of Great Falls, then climb and rope haul their boats to an overlook where they can scout the crux move of the 75-foot drop one last time. Great Falls is a twisting, rock-jammed stretch of whitewater where the immense western river-sized volume of the Potomac abruptly plunges off the Piedmont Plateau to the coastal plains. Nobody has ever run the vertical falls. The conventional wisdom is that nobody will run the falls. As it is, some 7 park visitors each year drown in the rapids. Most of them slip off the gorge's high cliffs and are swept into the fierce whirlpools at the bottom of the falls. The thrashing currents can hold a person for a long time. Some victims are never spat out. And yet Walker and McEwan, hotshot local whitewater racers, have been toying with the idea of a run down Great Falls almost as long as they can remember. Day after day they train at O-Deck Rapids and look the short distance upstream to the pounding, mist-shrouded cascade. Could they? At some point, the pair began to believe something fundamentally different from what 1 million or so residents in Metro D.C. and every single boater on the Potomac believed. They could. Not only could they run it, but they'd show everyone that their endeavor wasn't the reckless act of thrill-seeking idiots, but the work of shrewd, utterly rational individuals. After all, they weren't day campers out on a dare. The fair-skinned, block-chested Walker was a decorated military officer stationed at nearby Fort Belvoir. The dark-complected, 6-foot-tall McEwan was married, with a child on the way. They'd show that Great Falls was an objective that could be professionally trained and planned for, something they could study and know until the craziness had been wrung from it. In the years preceding that Sunday in August, they put the falls under their peculiar microscope. As far as they knew, nobody had ever boated off a major falls. They mapped the river's holes and eddies and drops at a myriad of water levels. Then they went out and played guinea pigs at nearby, presumably less sinister waterfalls. From West Virginia to North Carolina, they boated off increasingly high drops and even swam into the thrashing maelstrom at their base. In one episode, McEwan didn't get flushed out for almost a minute. Part of what they were doing was river morphology, understanding the chaotic behavior of a river at its wildest. Part of it was survivalist training, keeping it together when every mental impulse screamed for hitting the panic button. Each experience added up to a kind of blueprint for what to do, or, more accurately, what not to do when boating off a vertical fall. By the time they scrambled up the cliffs above the spout, the first 25-foot drop, they had a sense they'd done their homework, cracked the code. Moreover, they had a belief that they'd come to understand Great Falls, and by extension any other similarly monstrous and mythic river, for what it truly was, rocks and water, as Tom put it. What it was, not what their fears or other people's fears told them it was. And what it was runnable. The river cascades 75 feet in 200 yards and is defined by 3 distinct drops. They'd put in above the bottom falls and run that first, then the middle and bottom together. Finally, it is time to do the complete top-to-bottom run. The day is lightning, and time is running out. Soon the park rangers will be wandering about. First sight of boaters atop the falls will no doubt cause a convulsive response involving a phalanx of pissed-off fire and rescue squads. Tom McEwan moves fast, but he's not rushing. He slides into the boat's cockpit, fastening the stretchy girdle-like spray skirt around the lipped oval opening to seal him in and water out. Then he peers ahead to a point where the river's course drops completely from sight, and launches his 12-foot fiberglass boat into the abyss. McEwan, Walker, and Schnurrenberger run the upper rapids just as they drew it up. They ferry hard left at the first 8-foot drop, zigzag through the bouldering middle rapids, and then approach the spout, the final cataclysmic drop. Miss the hard left move, and the current will pile-drive them into a massive hole studded with rocks and ledgy outcroppings. A boat can easily become vertically pinned in the subsurface rock pile. If the boater's hands are free, maybe he can pull his spray skirt, and maybe he can swim out. Only a few years earlier, McEwan had been in a similarly grim scenario in the Linville Gorge, when he'd managed to exit at the last moment by up-thrusting his knees with such desperate force he emerged with the splintered deck of his boat hanging off his spray skirt. More likely, the thundering whitewater simply pounds the life out of whoever is beneath it. There is little to no rescue option. You have to save yourself. In a minute, maybe a little more, it will all be over. But nobody misses the move. The trio dig their paddles into the current with a hard right sweep stroke. The boats pivot, almost in midair it seems, and skip across the lip of the falls. Then the world drops away and they're falling almost 3 stories. Exploding into the pile below, each disappears momentarily and then bursts free to the surface. A moment later they're safely tucked into an eddy. They don't whoop it up as though they've cheated death. Rather, there's the sense of satisfaction that they are up to the unknown, utterly fit for it. Then they paddle away, not bothering to tell anybody about their feat for several years to come, and to this day they refuse to say which of them ran the falls first. This makes the tale of the run even better when it does finally surface, and then the mystique about it, and about them, grows. Tom and Wick become local legends. But the Great Falls was a mere prelude, a training trip for a major whitewater expedition Walker and McEwan had planned for the Bhutanese Himalaya later the same year. After Bhutan, the duo had in mind an even bigger, more audacious objective, a monstrous and largely obscure river in southeastern Tibet called the Yarlung Tsangpo. It appeared to have the largest drop of any river in the world. It traveled through a gorge that was one of the most remote places on the planet. According to a book Wick Walker had unearthed, there were reports of some 75 waterfalls in a virtually unexplored and fabled stretch of about 20 miles. The suggestion of a real-life Shangri-la in those same gorge depths captivated them. It was the Everest of rivers, undone and unopposed. Of the few river runners who were familiar with it, almost all believed its volume, gradient, and remoteness made the Yarlung Tsangpo beyond the means of what humans could do in a boat. Maybe not surprisingly, Walker and McEwan weren't so sure. McLean, Virginia, September 1998. As Tom McEwan drives along the I-495 Beltway, a thick mist begins to fall. It's unseasonably warm, and rush-hour traffic is heavy and getting heavier. His wipers skitter haplessly across a cracked windshield. The 1980s vintage Rabbit isn't exactly a pleasure craft in the rain. In big downpours, the water kicks up through the rusted floorboards and rushes in the hole in the passenger side door where the handle used to be. After years of service transporting him to rivers up and down the eastern seaboard, the beater is on its last legs. But then that's pretty much been the case forever. Tom could probably scrape the money together for something better, but he won't. He has a stubborn allegiance to things that look hopeless. With the expedition team's departure tomorrow, he's en route to a final meeting tonight at Harry Weatherby's house. The local D.C. forecast calls for more rain, more humidity, and a big band of thunderstorms. Passing over the Potomac where it flows wide and smooth, he knows the water level is high for the spout, probably 3 feet and then some on the Little Falls gauge. The one time he ran it at these levels, he got hammered. He and his boat stuffed to the deepest, most ear-throbbing part of the hole for half a minute. Normally it's a relatively safe run at this time of year. One more postscript maybe on an El Niño year that just won't quit. Elsewhere things are much worse, of course. In California, houses are falling into the rising Pacific. In East Africa, the rains have unleashed a disease epidemic. And in Asia...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?